I found out about Bitcoin in 2013, and I was learning about the technology. I was reading about it on Wikipedia, and I was a freshman in high school. And the reason why it intrigued me is because there was no boundaries per se, or I guess gatekeepers stopping me as a young 14-year-old high schooler to get into this space. I barely had a bank account at that age. I couldn't get on Coinbase. I had to go ahead and buy Bitcoins with my mom. It's helped because I wasn't 18, but there's still this fundamental opportunity of saying anyone in the world can have access to this financial network. Doesn't matter your race, your ethnicity, what you believe in. And that really resonated with me as a young individual. And so I started learning about, okay, why is Bitcoin unique? What does it solve? And it solves this problem about trust. And when you're a high schooler, you're a little, not necessarily not trustworthy, but you're a little like authority. You don't like it if people can tell you to do something. And Bitcoin solves this problem called the Byzantine generals problem. And it's like the exact situation of that pushy 13, 14-year-old who thinks they know everything. It's like, I can go on the internet and I can participate in the set rules of Bitcoin and how they're set up. And I have to follow those rules, but they're defined. So there's no like, well, this is the rule because I said so. And that was a big thing for me as a kid. And in high school, I would like read the rule book and read the policy guidelines to make sure that I could follow the policies, by the T and knew them so I could use them to my advantage. And so when you get to Bitcoin and this Byzantine generals problem, effectively what it is we're all going to agree to attack the city at once, or we're all going to agree not to attack the city. And that's called consensus. And it was very hard to not get consensus on the internet without having someone have a higher authority over another member. But as a Bitcoin miner, I realized that we got to consensus by having people invest infrastructure and energy into these mining devices in order to achieve this consensus.
Yeah, that's really a fascinating metaphor. As someone who once was a rebellious high school kid, this idea of decentralization, of basically having authority spread out. Another way of, I guess, talking about this problem is the problem of trust without trusted third parties. In other words, the idea that you can have a network itself that through consensus, through proof of work, has the ability to distribute trust rather than having, an authority, a bank, for example, that says, okay, this transaction's okay. JP is sending Ash $100. We can verify that it's in his account. We'll send it to Ash's bank. They can verify that he is who he says he is, and we'll do the transfer. This is a radical departure. And I don't mean to sort of get into hyperbole when we talk about this, but this really is the first time in human history that you could have a network with distributed, decentralized trust, where there was a mechanism for all of the participants on the network to reach consensus collectively together.
And that's the unique innovation here with proof of work, is that we're able to reach that consensus by having individuals invest in their infrastructure and buy energy. But now if you take that step farther, that means that everyone's on a level playing field. If I'm a government, if I, like El Salvador, if I am a company, if I'm an individual, we all have access to electricity, and everyone has to use that electricity. There's no cheating. It's not like, oh, I have this electricity machine here that's going to make electricity for free or at no cost. So everyone has these real raw inputs and these raw costs. And then what it does is it makes it so that you're incentivized to find energy infrastructure that no one in the world is using, to find the cheapest energy possible. Wind farms, solar farms, energy without a fuel source is usually the cheapest. So that's what we're focused on as large institutional Bitcoin miners, is always looking for the next spot where no one's buying the energy and then exporting it from that local marketplace, which could be in Alberta, Canada, up in the mountains. It could be in the middle of the Midwest where there's only small towns, and sending it to the Bitcoin network. So most of the energy actually goes to waste. And that's what a Bitcoin miner, and that's what's nice about Bitcoin mining. It's like anyone can do it. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. If you're a nation state or individual, you have access to energy. You can play this game of exporting energy from your local marketplace to the global one of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and another way of talking about this is going from a system that's based on rules and contract enforcement to a system where ultimately it's the laws of mathematics and physics that govern the trust of the network.
Exactly. We're trusting physics to handle our money. No more politicians, which is amazing. And that's why I was so excited as a young lad and at 13, 14 years old. And then going into high school, I started the Miningstore in 2016, started mining Ethereum, ended up scaling to facilities in North Carolina, and then all the way up to Oregon, and then the Midwest and Iowa in 2019. And now we're saying, how do we buy wind farms and scale there? So it's been a massive journey all the way from the first device I plugged in my parents' basement when my dad and myself, wired up some extra 20 amp circuits and was running in a cardboard, a milk crate with GPUs across it. And today, where you have massive shipping containers, 30,000 square foot buildings we're producing, and you're actually buying the wind farms themselves to generate the energy. It's been such an incredible journey.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just an extraordinary technical story. I should say, even though I'm very excited about this technology, there are all kinds of risk factors associated with this, risks, uncertainties, criticisms. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a few minutes. But I want to just continue to walk through the way that this works and how you participate in it. Because as you say, this business has scaled pretty extraordinarily for you. There, if you Google your name, there are all kinds of articles that say things like, the 24-year-old who makes over $1 million a month mining Bitcoin. You've been able to move this operation from something as a high school student, as a hobby, into an industrial scale business. Talk a little bit about what some of those challenges were, and also what the opportunities that you saw, and why you were so interested in getting into this business at an industrial scale.
So when I started off, it was manageable and it was small, and all it was about was that one machine in front of you. And then I realized that, okay, if I wanted to leverage my time and if I wanted to leverage my skills and knowledge, I needed to find capital. And so I went in, put up some capital myself. I convinced my grandma and grandpa at the time and my uncle to put money into a project. We put $100,000 in combined into mining Ethereum. Now, at that point, I went from 2 machines to over probably 300 GPUs, so roughly 60 to 70 machines. And that was the first kind of taste of scaling an operation. And the reality is like running one machine, you have a little bit of problems, but running 70 machines, you start to scale up in your issues, having to maintain them. And so I began to learn, began to use better software, better systems in place, right procedures, and start hiring my friends to help me service these facilities and service these machines. And as time scaled, I was younger, I was selling this equipment online to others. So I wasn't necessarily growing my mining operation or building out any infrastructure. I was simply providing a service, and I was getting other people into mining, consulting, helping people out like PRTI with their waste tires, to turning tires into energy, then into Bitcoins, and working with the Sacramento Kings on mining for charity out there with our Mining for Good program. And so overall, time would just kind of bring me a new opportunity of like, hey, here's a Bitcoin mining opportunity, here's an Ethereum opportunity. And by the time 2019 came around, I was dropped out of school because I wanted to focus on this full time out of college. And I decided, what's the next step? And that's when you start having to raise capital from your family, friends, from your network, from the group of investors. You start sharing your story and you start telling people, here's what we're going to do. And I found this location in Iowa, actually where I'm here today, and we started building out a facility there. And then we started hiring technicians, a sales team, people to market and run the operation. And the business goes from a Shopify store with one person, myself, to a business with over 30 people running day-to-day operations, growing, building software to make it better. And my overall, I guess, dream at the end of the day is that anyone can get into Bitcoin mining at $100 or a small amount of money. And so what we were able to do is we were able to work on improving not only the regulatory structure, but also the mining facility to have stability and figure out how we can get people into this space. And we ended up coming across something called the regulated crowdfunding, which is a new rule that came out in 2021 that allows anyone to raise up to $5 million from their network. And you can have the donation, or the investment, be as low as $100. And so that journey has brought me from my one rig to now back to one rig where anyone can get started for a small amount of money. And so over the years, you're focusing on the large scale operations, which is 80 megawatt data centers, fundraising for that, $100 million plus projects, but then also still focusing on the $100 one, making it accessible, making it so anyone can use the energy and mine Bitcoin. And so my story has been trying to make that Bitcoin mining opportunity available to everyone and provide them an idea of this is how you become economically free, by leveraging these computers to mine Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies on your behalf. And you're going to leverage that capital stack. You're going to leverage this opportunity. And instead of you going to work every single day, you can now put 10, 20, 30 computers to work for you. Now, as it grows, you need more capital. And so it's like this constant cycle, but it's more about like, how do we gamify it? How do we make it accessible to everyone? And that's what I've been focused on over the past, I would say, year and a half.
Hey visionaries, thank you for tuning in. For more free crypto content like this, head over to realvision.com/crypto. You'll get early access to the most brilliant minds in the space to cut through the noise, get in-depth analysis, and get you ahead of the curve with unbiased insights.